University and AI. The first thought that pops into your head, I guess, is, oh, writing papers with AI. And I have to confess, that's the thing I also think about a lot, as I also have projects at universities and teaching there. But there are other possibilities, other ways to use AI and actually to make the classes better. And someone who uses AI to make his classes better is Evan Sveum. He's teaching at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and he actually uses AI for his students, and they are better at learning. So let's see what Evan has for us. And yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Beginner's Guide to AI. Glad you are here. And let's just jump right into the interview. And on the microphone, it's again Dietmar from Argo Berlin.
All
So I
right.
can I can talk a lot about Evan, but the best thing is I give the microphone to him and he can tell us a little bit about him and most importantly, why AI.
All right. Well, Dietmar, thank you very much for having me on today. It's certainly an honor and a pleasure to talk with you and certainly talk about AI in education and in learning. Just to give you some background, currently I am a lecturer at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, one of the state universities in the state of Wisconsin. And I teach a course. An introduction to information systems for business majors within our College of Business. Prior to that, I spent 22 years just up the road in Menominee, Wisconsin at UW Stout, where I spent an awful lot of time in the area of IT, specifically information and communication technologies as a bachelor's degree with a variety of different minors and emphasis areas that gave depth ultimately to our students, made them more employable and so forth. My interest in AI is, I would say, pretty recent. Um, I I was I was brought into AI in a conversation that I had with my current department chair, talking about employment opportunities. And I thought, well, you know what? I've heard enough from other people. It was one of those instances where I'd heard it at least three times. And if I hear something at least three times, then it must be of something that is worth looking into. So I did. And about that time, I started listening to your podcast, The Beginner's Guide to AI. And I started at the beginning and I'm still going. I haven't quite caught up yet, but I've gotten enough depth, and with this school year, with the fall semester, I decided I needed to really look at what this could do for me, and I've learned an awful lot. And I also needed to find out what it could do for my students in enhancing what I consider the most important part, which is the learning, the outcomes. What can these students do ultimately as emerging professionals that they could not do before?
Yeah. Yeah. This is actually the whole problem is what is the new there's a lot of discussion what they need, but I think the first thing is they have to know about the topic. So you just said, okay, we'll teach with or we teach AI or what was your idea first?
Well, specifically, I think I'm very practical in how I approach any of my courses. Certainly, I was given a syllabus, and the syllabus is the record, if you will, of what the outcomes will be in the course. So I thought it was a very good fit for an information systems introduction for our students in the College of Business. So it was like, I'm going to use this. I'm going to teach you some things about AI, but I don't have a specific objective that says we're going to dive deep into this. But I want to use this to be able to take all the elements of the course and to see what I as the instructor can do with this. And as far as the students, it became, as the semester is almost over, it became a companion to anything that I ask them to do. So, for example, I was not the single point of information. Their textbook was not the single point of information. Quite honestly, even the internet wasn't, though the internet certainly has a great contributing part to this. But I told them it's not necessarily what you know at any given time. You'll eventually perhaps be expert in something, but it's like, where do you go to get your insights to get better at something? So it became another tool. It was, we talk about how a ruler or pencil or calculator were accessory things to helping a student get to a point of learning. I kind of took that with the AI as well. I wanted it to be a companion, if you will. Um, yeah, and you'll have to forgive me. I don't consider myself expert in this at all, but I am kind of a bleeding edge thinker on this, and I see it as so substantially revolutionary in so many different ways, whether it be in education or business or anything that hopefully eventually I'll get more expertise myself. But for right now, I think this is just something, especially for information systems students or business people that are studying this, that they need to have some experience. They need to know the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think what you're an expert on is teaching, and I this is one of the discussions is and actually that's my next question. Did you fear at the start that the student would just like copy and paste answers from ChatGPT and that was it, and your whole class would be like not teaching them anything anymore?
I had that thought in the back of my mind, and I certainly was reminded by my fellow colleagues who were maybe a little less um, pioneering in spirit as far as proceeding out with this. Uh, I found out early on, I ran into some of the same problems I've seen for years. So, for example, um, our students are all across the board when it comes to effective writing, communication through writing. I would have expected if they would have just dropped, various assignments in AI, I'd get this nice, clean, wonderful narrative. I did not. I don't know if that's an issue, if they didn't really buy into the idea of AI being something that they could use. It was just like another bolt-on accessory to this thing they're being forced to do at the university or what. But I was a little bit surprised. I did not see so much of that. Maybe it's because also of how I presented it. Right out of the gates, I had a very clear statement in my syllabus saying, in this course, here's how we are going to use AI. And I
Mhm.
didn't put up a lot of walls. I basically said, it's game on, if you will. You can use this. And here's how you can use it most effectively. I think maybe that was also a part of it as well. I really emphasized to them, if you're going to use this tool and you're going to get the answer from our class AI teaching assistant, who, by the way, is Isabelle, and I can certainly tell you more about that. But if you're going to use this, also ask the AI, where did you get your information? And then check it, and then put it into a reference list. Make credible what you are using from this tool, which really is no different than what we would ask if they went to the library and they looked at some journals or some books, or they went to do a Google search, for goodness sakes.
I mean, I think that's quite positive because really everybody's afraid. And if you, it's also like an interesting technique. If you say, okay, you can use it, it's not like if it's forbidden, it's like those forbidden fruits, then people might use it. But to go to tell openly you can use it and even explain it to them how to use it and also the flaws, obviously. I think it's a positive thing. It makes me think better of students now.
Well, good.
Yeah, no, there's really like this fear that they don't learn anything anymore. And you also mentioned your teaching assistant, but how did you start actually? What was what were the first steps? How did you try to implement AI?
Well, after I listened to a number of podcasts from your production particularly, but just kind of looking around, Um, I decided that knowledge was good, but I needed to have some hands-on. Hands-on is very important. I believe that a doing along with a knowing, they need
Yeah,
to go hand in hand.
yeah,
So I went out and got myself an account with Chat GPT. That was the most widely known, at least from what my research was at that point. And so then I got into it and I was just kind of interacting. It's like this alien being. I don't know what it is.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I start asking it questions and it gives me insights. And then all of a sudden for me, I was starting to get the light bulbs were popping in my head. It's like, whoa. And that to me was very important. And one of the major things that I have learned is the idea, inspirations in a collaborative, you know, uh, interaction with these AI tools is astounding. So I started there. I did not have the paid version. So I'm getting in there, I'm doing all kinds of experimenting, and all of a sudden I'm getting these, oh, you've hit your limit for the day. You can't go any further until, 1:59 p.m. or
yes,
something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, so there's limits to this. And then I thought, well, what does it cost? And I looked and I thought, you're charging $20 US for this. It's like, I think I can do that. And then I
yeah,
started my teaching gig at UW-Eau Claire, and they paid for a teaching academy, kind of getting all all ready for the new semester. And I thought, well, that justifies my expenditure right there. I can easily pay for that for the stipend I got. So that was where I started. And then after that, Dietmar, I just kept going into it more and more. It was like this snowball effect as an analogy going down a hill.
yeah,
And I am finding myself, well, if it can do this, how about this? And I knew as an instructor what my time sinks were from what my professional practice is. And so I started to just throw these things out to my teaching assistant and just chat GPT in general. And it seems like the creativity for me went up as I was developing curriculum. My ability to maintain the minutia of details in an assignment. So, for example, if you design an assignment that has got a clear purpose and you're clarifying tasks, and you've got a criteria that associates with a rubric, trying to keep all those things connected is very time consuming and often wrought with mistakes. But I'm finding that at least in that case, if you will, in my profession, I got some outputs that were like, I felt like, wow, this is really good. This is good. And my students, at least in what they tell me, seem to say, yes, your assignment directions are very clear.
yeah.
And there's not a lot of rework, which, I'll take that for what it is. I mean, students generally don't communicate really well until they know you better. Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's like the first thing is to you have your topic, you have your stuff, you do that all the time, and it helps you. It's not creating stuff in the end. It's like you are the originator of everything, and then it comes and sees like there's something you can improve or so. And yeah, even if the students don't tell you at the start, I mean, you have a professional knowledge. You know that things are better connected with what ChatGPT recommends, or you don't take it. I mean, this is always you have it under control. Yeah, but
Yeah.
then you had it in. So the first step was like helping you to start. What happened next? Then the students and yeah,
Well, I want I when I found out for myself what I could do with it and how it would uh, enhance my professional practice, I wanted to then take it further. So I started, and this didn't happen right away. The semester started, and I'd gotten the benefits of being able to design my curriculum and interfaces and so forth within my learning management system. But I wanted to take it further. So I started exploring that point of, okay, so I've created this teaching assistant, Isabelle, a clever acronym for Information Systems and Business Learning. So it's like, and I didn't come up with that. I'd like to say that I was that clever, but I asked the AI, how about a clever name for this thing?
I actually have
And
to tell
so,
you, I stole that idea from my concept of prompt generation, how to make an acronym, and I thought, okay, yeah, Evan said she the AI uses it,
yes.
so she can it can. It's always a problem. How do you talk to the AI? But in this case, Isabel can do it, or like, yeah, this is like great. Yeah, so Isabel.
So Isabelle, so I created Isabelle, and originally Isabelle for me was like this novelty that's going to help me create all my curriculum and do all my grading and do all my communication. And I'll tell you outcomes on that as we proceed. But I said, this is too good for me to have by myself. So I started to investigate what would it take to be able to integrate this tool that I created um, out into the learning management system so my students could access it on a regular basis. So I engaged in the administrivia at our campus to be able to do that. And I soon came to the point of understanding I probably wouldn't be able to get that approved for a number of years just because,
Oh my gosh,
large
yeah,
organizations just, they move very deliberately that
yeah.
way. And then it just came to me, and as I was learning more, I can share a link.
Mhm.
And then our administrator for our LMS said, share the link. And it's like, I'll share the link. So I did, and then I introduced Isabel to the class. I basically I had my cell phone, my smartphone. Why do we call it phone anymore? I don't know what we call phone.
Yes.
My handheld computer that also deals with audio through, anyways, I used the voice version of
Oh yes.
ChatGPT on my app on my phone, and I asked the GPT, please introduce yourself to the class, and I had it plugged into the speakers in our classroom, and so this thing's starting to talk to it in a voice that is friendly and warm because I
Wow.
told Isabel when I was creating this, please be, you know, we want to be nurturing, we want to be helpful, we don't want to give all the answers away, but we want to help people become good learners, critical thinkers, and so forth. So that's where it started. And then from that point forward, it just, again, the snowball continues to roll, it continues to get bigger. And as I'm progressing through the semester more and more, I'm pushing the students out to Isabel. We have this activity in class where it's not me lecturing, but the students dealing with key points related to a given unit. Say we're in the unit on data. So it's like Isabel already knows what the objectives for this particular unit are. And I say, all right, create me seven basically topic areas the students can explore, present to the class. And the students say, hey, Mr. Sveum, Professor Sveum, what's going on here? Where do we get this? Go ask Isabel. So they did. And the thing that I noticed, Dietmar, is I was looking at some stats in my GPT interface, and all of a sudden I'm seeing these chats. It's like 100 chats, 500 chats, and now it's well over 1,000 chats. And I would guess that's from usership. Mostly my students, though I suspect anybody in the world that's got this can look at it. And I have shared it with a few people just to show them what I'm doing. But that's where it began. And from there, it's like it's becoming a normal part of my practice, my vernacular. I am not the one point of contact. It's like, I know it, I'm going to tell you, but Isabel does too. That
Yeah.
assignment you've got, Isabel knows it. If you want Isabel to look at your assignment to give you some review feedback, give it to her because she'll take it.
So what really the one of the things that really struck me was that you introduced her with audio. I mean, this is the first step. You can always tell something to the students, and they have also smartphones, so they do their stuff or the computer. They don't really listen what you say, but at that moment, the computer voice starts talking. I find that is, from a didactical standpoint, a really great move. So for everybody out there, it could also be to your firm, because most of the people don't know about those great voice capabilities of the AI nowadays. It's like not this robot voice anymore. So it's really like a talking to a person. Yeah, no, but so the introduction, and then at a certain point I once a year I teach a class. At a certain point we won't be needed anymore. It sounds like that.
Well, that's you bring up a good point there, and you'd mentioned earlier in this interview about fear. I think fear, it's a four-letter word that people need to watch out for. I think anytime you're really fearing something, I'm of the belief you better start asking some questions. You better get some insight into this thing that's making you emotionally want to run away. Um, I think one of the fears is, especially in this day and age, at least in this part of the United States, and I think in the world in general, education is really getting questioned for its value, and oftentimes it gets pointed back to instructors. And there is a cost with education. There's no doubt about that. It's very expensive to go to school, and no matter where you go. So will the AI ultimately replace the teaching and learning professional? I think that is a fear. Um, I at this point, through my experience, one semester in, small sample size, but I don't see that as a case yet. I think the particular where where this particular iteration of artificial intelligence is, it's still not too smart. Um, I see it more as a collaboration tool that can be very powerful and can take an individual further if they're partnered in that mindset. But my learning at this point with it says I can't turn this thing loose by itself. One of the big time sinks for me is assessment. So if you've got a lot of students in your class, and in my class, it's a pretty, pretty, I don't know, pretty big numbers as far as students and the things we ask them to do. Assessment load is kind of heavy. I wanted to ultimately be able to say, I'll plug in an assignment, feed my Isabelle, my AI teaching assistant, and say, assess all this, give me good, rich feedback, look at everything, and be 100% accurate. And I found out early that I couldn't trust
Yeah.
the tool as it was because of limitations in a chat environment. If you do more than, if I assess more than 10 students in a single chat, I start to get this crossover, this bleed over effect, that feedback from a prior student gets dropped in the one
Yeah.
I'm doing. So it's like I'm still working on my assessment processes. I've made good progress, but I can't just turn it loose. So, anybody that's afraid this is going to displace you right now as a teaching and learning professional, I would say that's not the case at all right now.
Mhm. Mhm. And at the moment, at least, that I think, and I mean, one has to have the objective of the class that you have in mind, that people should be employable, so they need to learn how to use the tool. And the best thing is to let them do that themselves. So I think that totally fits what. And they see the limitations and they see what it is capable of, and so yeah, that's a good way to let them work with the tool, and also that it can't, yeah, right now this is the thing, can't at the moment do everything, and you have to, if you then use it in work, know the limitations, because then your boss tells you later do that and you take the AI and it messes up big time. There's this everybody knows the story of the lawyer who was in court and they had invented cases there, so something like that. Should have learned better.
Yeah, and the AI it is so accommodating. You know, you can keep asking questions and pushing it, and it will give you the answers that you desire, to the point of it's like you are not telling me the truth, AI. But then again, does an AI actually understand truth other than from a text,
Yeah.
language perspective? Probably not.
No,
So
I
yeah,
know.
uh, very
Uh,
positive. I'm very excited about it, and I think the opportunities for students to get enhancement of learning and to have their curiosity turned on is really, really powerful, because it's not just about what I, the instructor, have to say about something. It's like, okay, what are you curious about? Oh, let's start asking this. Let's do this. And it turns into a self-directed experience, which
Wow.
ultimately
Yeah.
we want these professionals of the future to be able to engage in that kind of thinking and doing.
Yeah, that's the way away from this frontal learning perspective. Yeah, great. Yeah. Uh, do let's talk more a lot about Isabelle. So for you created Isabelle. We don't, as we are more or less an audio podcast, we don't go into screens or something, and it's a little bit of the difficulty to describe. But what did you do actually?
Well, I got into the tool and I just started pushing buttons. That's what I did. And I was able, just, I think from my background in the IT software, where I've spent a lot of my professional life, to go into this, I through just observing interface could find out here are the places where you create or customize. Chat GPT, I think, has done the best they could do at this point to make it as easy as possible, so that you're not getting into any instance where you're doing any specific coding. So I just went into the new custom GPT, and then in the interface in that environment, I had a place where I could actually interact with the GPT itself. And I'd say, it would say, hello, what would you like to do with this? Well, I would like to create, I basically used my language, which I have discovered at this point is my code.
Uh-huh,
My
uh-huh.
language is the code.
Yeah,
I don't know how to code like really good, but my language, the way these things are set up, does the coding. So I just talk to it and I interact with it. And pretty soon it was creating a behavior profile, which I was able to view. It even created an image of this, which I went through some iterations. I mean, iteration is kind of the name of the game in interacting with this
really
on
important.
all
Yes. Yeah.
levels. But that's what I did. That's how I started. But then from there, I was thinking, I need to know more because I feel like I don't have enough control. So I actually set up I set up I just went to Chat GPT and I said, create for me a basic learning plan, so that I get better control of building my custom GPTs. And I'm progressively, even to this day, going through it. I'm asking it to quiz me, test me out, take me to the places so I get better depth.
Yeah.
So work in progress, and I'm using the tool to help me to build the tool. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm open to workshops. I'm open to trainings. At this point, it's just this is where I'm at with learning and how I'm building.
Yeah.
Present tense, building Isabelle,
Yeah.
because I'm not satisfied with the outcomes yet. They're nice, but some of them I have not been able to achieve.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about it is like it's a simple process. Just one button you push basically, then you create your custom GPT, ChatGPT and names. There's like man could call it an app or so, but you have in a few steps and without programming, you have an app and that's a teaching assistant. But and the point is you have to give it more information. And in the prep talk we talked about what you did more to like make it fit to your class. Could you go into the details there?
How I fit it for my class.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, with the initial, what I just described as far as talking to the GPT in the configuration of this custom GPT, that kind of gave it the personality. It knew my audience. I deal with a sophomore level class, so I wanted to make sure that it was really focused on audience. I wanted to make sure that it was essentially helping me in my curriculum development, also assisting the students in their learning, because I emphasize learning is a big thing. Beyond that, what I ended up doing, and is my current practice, is every time that I've developed a particular assignment, my course is made up of 5 units. Within those 5 units, they have particular focus areas and then assignments. Anytime that I would develop a unit, I would start with Isabelle and we would go through all the things of what are the learning outcomes?
Uh-huh.
How does it connect to the course? Show that. And then I would essentially flow down into the assignment. So Isabelle and I worked together to make sure that we had consistency with starting with objectives and outcomes and working to specific assignments and assessments. How do we know that we made the objectives? And so I provided after that development occurred, I would literally load those documents into the knowledge area of the custom GPT. There is a repository where you can put documents that the GPT will go and look. You know, the students
Yeah.
don't have to
Yeah.
ask me, hey, what's your grading policy? I say, go ask Isabelle. And she'll hit my syllabus, which is a part of this
Yeah.
knowledge repository, and tell the student exactly. But actually, she won't say it exactly unless you say exactly. She'll summarize. She'll give it based on her behavior or
Yeah.
settings.
Yeah.
So at this point, that's Isabelle. Lots of documents that she can draw on that are very specific, and then the behavior that I started with and little tweaks here and there as we've gone along through the semester.
That is actually really interesting. From a copyright perspective, would be great if one would be allowed to upload the textbooks, but that's not possible, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Certainly one of the major concerns about use of any of these GPTs, these AI apps, would be copyright of intellectual properties. And I am very aware of that because that's been, again, a part of the life that I've lived as a professional in higher education. Uh, you got to watch out for that stuff.
Yeah.
Certainly, the text would be good, but quite honestly, you don't need to have an entire textbook really for these tools to be very supportive and very accurate of what is happening in your classroom. Because again, the way the GPT is created, it knows it has this immense background, the large data, big data. I mean, it's all that stuff, and it knows, and it certainly knows about computers and information systems.
Yeah, yeah. But if you take history or whatever, all the topics, if you have like, I once said there's like in the agrarian faculty there was something like different kinds of flowers. That might get complicated. That you have a whole lecture just about or a whole class about certain types of flowers might be complicated. But if you have a bigger topic, I think there's everything in the ChatGPT. Yeah, it's quite interesting and it helps. And there is a side note. If the textbook would be in, the students would have it easier to cheat and like write whole assessment assignments with ChatGPT. As this is not in there, they have to at least read something by themselves. It's like,
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, reading has always been a struggle. It's like, textbooks generally are not great reads. I mean, I read them because, it is my job, but I have yet to find a textbook that really stimulates me. You may give me a piece of information I know to do something, and that's worthwhile. I mean, we have reference books. I mean, we have Google.
yeah,
I want to fix the plumbing in my bathtub. Oh, I'm not a plumber, but let's go ask Google, and then let's watch a YouTube video. Now I've got AI, which gets to that faster.
yeah, yeah. No, this is like so you get enough solutions out of that system. And what I find interesting is the learning. I mean, there's Isabel learns. This is one thing. You put more stuff in, the students put more stuff in, and the next thing is the models develop. Um, Could you we had one or two nice cases where you could go beyond what's possible before Isabel, where there's some cases where you say this is new learning stuff, new stuff you can put out there.
Boy, that you might have just stumped me right there, Dietmar.
Oh, no, wanted to hint at like something language wise or something.
Oh, well, I don't know if this is exactly where you're going with this, but as far as language is concerned, I have individuals in my class from many places around the world that do not speak English as a first language. Always have a lot of respect for these individuals because they come here, learn English, and then they enroll in our classes, which I think is astounding, and a lot of credit is due to these students. One of my students in my class this semester, I believe he was from the Middle East, Pakistan. I'm not exactly sure, but he was having some struggles with English, and he wasn't really understanding what I was saying or what the documents were saying. So I challenged him one day just on a whim. I said, talk to Isabelle, tell Isabelle your native language, and then see what Isabelle provides back for you. He came back to me the next week enthusiastic because Isabelle spoke his language really, really well. And it was like, for me, that's an eye opener at this point. It's like another barrier another barrier to learning got lowered. So now we're getting these opportunities for people with all the different languages and peoples in the world to be able to understand at their language something that occurs elsewhere. To me, I don't even know what to do with that really, other than saying though that student in my class was very happy.
Yeah.
That they understood and that they could engage. It was like a confidence boost for them. And I think that's huge, because how any human being, any learner feels about themselves at any given time has a major impact in how they're going to do.
Totally.
Yeah. So I think, at that level, I think the use of AI to be able to bridge gaps to create context is giant. I mean, it's huge.
This is like, this is the dream, the bubble fish you put in your ear and you can understand. And in this case, it's maybe not this missing cultural context or whatever, but it's the important thing is that the person can learn. And it's like, it's huge. And people learn English, and I'm this, I use English a lot. So, but I still, it's like, I sit there, write an email in English, and I'm like, how is it? And there's ChatGPT around the corner, and you just check if everything is good. No, it's like a new. It's really a companion that helps you do that. An assistant. No, that's like learning. So the development, and we will basically see what happens. So how in the end you evaluate the whole thing. And one thing did at the start you said the situation or how the other lecturers viewed the whole process or so. Did that change? Are they curious what you do?
At this point, as a semester progresses, people kind of get caught in their practices, and maybe there isn't as much communication as there could be or should be. I know that my department chair has been very enthusiastic about what I've been doing. I find that she is a believer as well, and from what I've heard, just very shallow conversation, has done quite a bit with the tools in curriculum development, which I find fascinating. I asked the students kind of mid-semester, I was curious. They knew at that point that Isabelle was a thing in the class that I was the instructor. I asked them, tell me about your other classes. Are there others that are using this, and at what level? And quite honestly, there wasn't very much use at all. There's kind of you got to do this yourself. Again, maybe going back to that fear. I think in some cases, some of my colleagues, you get caught in these cycles of I've got all these things to do. And it's like, what's the next new thing you're going to ask me to do? And so there may be a little overload in that case. But right now, I would say that I am, in my practice, somewhat of a minority with how I've approached things. I know that our campus, like our teaching and learning branch in our campus is very aware of what I do because I've told them, and they're also very aware of what isn't happening on
Yeah.
campus. And so they're trying to present with various books and lectures and stuff like that to be able to talk about the teaching and learning practice and how AI can contribute in a positive way to that. But it's pretty quiet. I find myself once again on the bleeding edge. I'm the pioneer going across the prairie, leading the way, and hopefully somebody will follow me eventually.
Yeah, the hope is there. No, but I'm quite optimistic. And people have to do it kind of a sense. And this is what you say, the fear. The more the people know AI education, it's like learning about AI, the less the people will be afraid. And yeah, actually talking about learning types, how to reach people, that's actually a thing. I think this is like also a thing. It's not just the language, but you have different learning types. And I think you used Isabel to address that problem as well.
Oh, yeah, oh gosh. I don't know if I did that overtly, but I recognize that how Isabel and how these AI tools interact with people, they're very accommodating. So if the people are willing to get in there and they do reasonable prompts, it can be something that can again address the specific nature, the learning, uh, the modes of learning that people are most comfortable with. And
Yeah.
it does it in a way that is ideal. The ideal teacher to student ratio is 1 to 1.
Mm.
And the way modern education is set up, of course, you're going to have classrooms with classes anywhere from maybe a nice number of 10 to my number of 40, or to a large lecture hall of a lot more. So trying to even, I mean, learning styles it's been talked about forever and ever how we can help people by doing things in a way that taps their learning style. But sheer volume gets to be an issue unless you've got some help.
Yeah.
I think the AI, I think that's an area that really can help with allowing people to select their ways of learning and to just go with it. Um, like what I described earlier, is I'm teaching myself how to use Chat GPT better. I know they've got all kinds of training materials and manuals and stuff, but that doesn't work for me. I
Yeah.
want to get to specific questions, and I'm just using the tool to say, hey, you go and look at your training manual and come back to me and help me with my style of learning that I prefer.
That is actually great. I so see a future in that because nowadays it's like you have to be. It's a pure thing of luck. Do you fit to the professor or not? Or does the system, does the book support your learning style? If you can transform that, then it's like maybe 4, 10, 20 different styles, rhythms, whatever that can adjust to your learning style, to the time frame you have even. It's like, yeah, some really
Yes.
big potential. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, if the focus is learning, then I think AI is certainly something that can definitely, I've seen it. I have, my class is the proof. It's a small sample size, but it's a beginning point. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to have a ripple effect, especially for the individuals who recognize what the capabilities are. And yeah, there's going to be those individuals that look to do the least work possible and to, scam the system. I mean, come on, folks. This has just been that way for a while.
Yeah.
Work with it. Don't get so focused on that you can't see the benefits of those individuals who are taking it and doing positive things with it.
Yeah, one still has to think that the people come for a reason to the university and they want to learn. And if with this positive, I think it's a good positive note to end it. We believe in that students want to do things and not just forced to do things. So, Evan, last question of the interview. It's about will we humans land in a zoo and the AI will watch us, the Terminator scenario, Matrix scenario? What do you think is possible, probable, and yeah.
Well, I've listened to all your podcasts, and I've listened to the responses of many of your guests, and I for the most part, I agree. Um,
I think that it's possible, but very improbable. But something that I was thinking about in responding to this question related to, okay, technology runs amok. That's one thing. What about the human beings who are creating this? Uh, through my through my experiences in higher education, I've gotten a real good insight into the notion of unintended consequences, things that happen that we didn't plan for, we weren't looking at. There are many examples over the course of history with human beings engaging in something enthusiastically, but later finding that it's doing damage at some point.
Yeah.
One in particular that I'll just drop here, and I think most people will understand, and if you don't, do a Google search and you'll see this. There was a point where there was a chemical called DDT
Uh,
introduced,
uh,
and DDT was this solution to all these terrible problems that were going on. I think in part where there was mosquito-borne disease. I still remember the video clips of these foggers fogging neighborhoods in towns with DDT.
mm,
Later on, after we start getting results, unintended consequences, people say, hey, this is very bad for people,
yeah.
the environment, animals, water, all these things. And now that isn't something you can just get and use. It's been banned.
Yeah.
So I think unintended consequences with what human beings do in technological innovation and invention is probably more of a threat, at least at this point, or at least a contributor with what AI might or might not be. So human beings, unpredictable. AI, also at this point, unpredictable in some cases.
No.
That's my answer.
Yeah, I can follow you on that. And it's actually DDT is a good example of that. Many people, many things people think in, yeah, they think of the good things, but yeah, the consequences we don't know. So yeah, um, we'll have to wait through it and hope. Like that also fits to the students because the people didn't in your class, the students they didn't abuse the stuff. So that's actually yeah. Let's end on this positive note. Can you tell us where people can find you actually get in contact with you?
Oh, wow. Well, LinkedIn is, I think, a nice place that anybody on the planet who has internet can go. So I think that would be the good place to direct people. And again, I just want to, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity just to talk about this. And my heart is for learning. My heart is for my students and the outcomes. I mean, it isn't just about it isn't just about what I do professionally, but it's the outcomes of that.
Yeah,
And I also want to help my colleagues too, because I know what
yeah,
my colleagues deal with on a daily basis.
yeah.
And being a teacher is very noble, though parts of the world and certain individuals and groups like to beat up on the teacher. And I am not one of those people. I want to help my colleagues.
Has an old tradition. Like even Roman times, was it Seneca who taught Nero, and then they said, "Nah, yeah, whatever." So we don't go that far. And Isabel, Isabel, you can one can find on the GPT store, or should people write you for a link?
Yeah, I think I'd like to have people, if they're interested in just investigating, Isabelle, just drop me a note. At
Yeah.
this point, my intention wasn't entirely to let the world in on my classroom and Isabelle, but certainly for those who are
Yeah.
looking for a starting point, because their learning style is I got to see it, then I'd be happy to certainly share Isabelle that way.
That is great. No, just Evan, this was really, as I am in the higher education myself in a project in Munich at the university in the pedagogics department. This is really a topic we have on our minds. This is one of the many things I have on my mind, but this is one that really follows me around. So it was great that I could interview you and see how it really works. And yeah, I mean, that is really hopeful. A, students do something with it, B, it helps us teach better, and C, the whole learning experience gets better, gets more focused, gets more people can profit from it. Yeah, great. Then I would say thank you, and let's see how
Welcome.
Isabelle develops.
Yes, well, absolutely. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share, and I look forward to learning more and being able to share more in the future.
Thank you, Evan.
So you see, you can do a lot in university with AI. I mean, this is not just an example for university, but everywhere where people learn, you can use it's from ChatGPT, it's custom GPTs, Gemini from Google or Cloud. They all have those tools where you can create your own teaching assistant basically and help the people. I mean, that is really, you have to think of the people. We had this in the interview. People go out and the students go out and they have to use AI. So if you're teaching somewhere, try to use AI and try to help the students using AI. So thanks again, Evan. And people, don't forget to follow the podcast on your podcast app. And there's also the newsletter, argoberlin.com/newsletter. You get all the episodes and some interesting stuff I have in my head. Until the next episode, signing off, Dietmar from argo.berlin.